The following is a presentation of Moonlight Media Works. Hello and welcome in to another edition of the Collins Janus Show. We are recording this May 28th. That's a Thursday, just coming off of Memorial Day weekend. Again, we thank all those who gave all in defense of this great nation as we took the time to remember that over the weekend, as well as a part of so many other things going on that really colored the entire weekend last weekend, most notably what we talked about in last week's show, the tragic loss at the age of 41 years old of Kyle Busch. I was at Charlotte Motor Speedway all weekend trying to get in some of the action there over the weekend, and rain dictating the flow of things for Friday and Saturday. And I have to tell you, coupled with that, with the tragedy that took place during the week, it just really made for quite a somber weekend, which is already a weekend of remembrance anyways, because the Coke 600 does this race and does this weekend justice by all they do to remember and recognize servicemen and women who gave their lives that we recognize on Memorial Day with all the pre-race festivities and performances and demonstrations that they do with either the helicopters or the servicemen and women out on the racetrack with the flags beforehand, the moment of silence during the race after the end of the stage. It is truly one of those powerful moments that sports is able to convey and recognize in a weekend like this. But then you have to add in a loss that affected the entire NASCAR community at such a great length, which was the Kyle Busch loss. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Being there on Sunday, getting to take part in all the tributes and remembrance of Kyle. I want to give a tip of the cap to the folks at NASCAR for putting on a very powerful pre-race moment of, remembrance and silence. The performance of Amazing Grace, having Samantha and Brexton there with all the drivers and teams around him on pit road with Richard Childress there as well. It was a powerful scene, and I want to commend the Busch family for showing up and being a part of that. It gave us as fans a chance to tell them that we are supporting them, and we want them to know that we love and care for them as a member of the NASCAR fan base and the NASCAR community as a whole. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Brexton Busch at 11 years old being the strength of that family right now, supporting his mother and his sister there on pit road, really being a rock in that situation at such a young age is so incredibly commendable. Between that and then seeing the great display by Owen Larson there, who races with Brexton at Millbridge, going over him, giving his friend a hug in a tough time. I mean, it's hard to fathom what those kids are going to grow up without, because obviously Lennox, Kyle's daughter, is only 4 years old, and Brexton's 11, and it won't feel real for a long time, but they're going to have to, go on and live with that. And for Lennox at such a young age, it's hard to process just what that's going to be. But I commend Steve O'Donnell and everybody at NASCAR for what they did to basically put their arms around this family and say, we have got your back. We're going to make this right. We're going to help you as best as we can. And I think that was a great gesture. Between that, all the fans in the stands holding up 8 fingers on lap 8. I mean, you hear stories about what happened with Dale in 2001 and the reaction and the weeks that led up to it. I saw the displays out in front of Richard Childress Racing. There was a display out in front of Charlotte Motor Speedway. There was so much Kyle Busch merchandise out there everywhere. And I know there were a lot of people that were wearing it that were not Kyle Busch fans. And that just goes to prove the point that this is a truly unique environment. It's not like other sports. It truly is these individuals going to battle on a racetrack, trying to do these things, trying to beat each other, but there's a lot of respect between both drivers and fan bases. It may not show it all the time. It's a competitive sport just like anything else, but they really do care, and they do rally around each other in times like these that are tough. So I want to commend what was a great, display the entire weekend from both the fans and the sport, the drivers and the teams. And what's interesting, we talked a little bit about the fan reaction and some of the other things about it, myself included. I recognize now that, and I said it in last week's episode, that all the things that were coming Kyle's way, all the accolades, all the glory that came with being at his portion of his career, where you get all the accolades, all the praise for everything. And even if the racing results on track weren't where he wanted them to be, there were so many things that were going to come. The Hall of Fame. I know that was a big topic of discussion. I talked with Doug Rice this weekend. Said wouldn't be shocked if they moved the timeline up, race the wait period. Some people are even saying they give a special election, a la what Major League Baseball did with Roberto Clemente when he passed away. I won't be shocked if they decide to do any of that, and I would firmly be fine with that. I mean, this is a special circumstance, and it would be, I mean, to waive the wait period would be the easiest thing to do, but if you want to go ahead and put the election in and just go ahead and put him in, by all means. There's no argument against putting him in the Hall of Fame. Zero. So, I don't know that we need to go through the process. I understand they don't want to open that door and kind of leave it open for other instances that may or may not be of the same severity, but this is a no-brainer to me. Whatever you want to do, let's get him in there. Let's get him in there unanimously. Let's do what we have to do. Recognize it while it's still fresh in everyone's mind that how good Kyle Busch really was. And, you know, I was thinking about it to the fan effect of it all. I was thinking about my own relationship to what Kyle Busch meant to me. I kind of talked about it last week. But when I was a fan really getting into the sport, 2007, 2008, 2009, 20, you know, all the way up through till now, Kyle was a guy I gravitated toward when he made the jump from Hendrick to Joe Gibbs. He was a teammate of Tony Stewart's, and really it's funny because when you have one driver as a kid at that age, that's all you really want to support. But there were a handful of guys at that age that I could look at and go, yeah, I'm cool if he wins. I'm happy to see that guy do well. If it wasn't going to be Tony Stewart. Two of the guys, and it's the funniest thing, is the two opposite ends of the spectrum. In the Cup Series, it was Mark Martin when he got in that 5-car at Hendrick. He was the first Hendrick driver I ever actually rooted for because I was such a Mark Martin guy. I thought he was so cool. He won Darlington in 2009. I was at that race as well. But Kyle Busch was the other obvious answer because Kyle Busch in 2008 was one of those like absolute missiles. I mean, he was something you draw your eye to. You look over and you go, wow, that's incredible. And there are instances I kind of alluded to with fandom. It's like, once Tony retired in 2016, there was opportunities for you to try and pick and choose your drivers of the future that you want to root for. And for a couple of years there, I bounced around a little bit. My fandom kind of wavered. I kind of was interested in some other things, but I never left the sport altogether. I mean, I liked guys like Ryan Blaney or Kyle Larson or, Martin Truex Jr. And Kyle was in that conversation as well. And I think the only thing I can truly attribute to, just this thought I've been stuck with all weekend, which is I remember in college, and this would have been 2017, 2018, I was watching guys like Kevin Harvick. I was rooting for Tony Stewart's team, and I was rooting for other guys like that. Guys that I may not have rooted for when I was younger because I was only on the Tony Stewart thing. I came around to the Dale Jr. near the end of his career, too. I was not a Dale Jr. fan when I was younger. I was a Tony Stewart purist. And at the time, there were all those big stars that I thought, well, Tony's better than them and them and them and whatever. And I was very puritanical at that age. It's just the way it is. And you open your mind up the older you get, and obviously when your driver retires, you can open yourself up to appreciate more driving talents, better personalities, different personalities, other personalities. You can do all those things. But I remember having this vivid thought in my freshman year in college, and this was still when Kyle could go out there and sweep a weekend. Like I think he swept Bristol in 2017, one of those weekends between the Trucks Xfinity and Cup. And I just remember thinking, we're going to look back on this guy in 20 years, and I'm going to be able to be like, yeah, that guy was like the Dale Sr. of my generation. That guy, when you stepped down on the track, he was intimidating. When he stepped out there, he was this, he was that, he was dominant. And I thought to myself about all those things. And you know what? I fully recognize now that in the last couple of years of his career, I took Kyle for granted. I really did. I took Kyle for granted as, somebody that was going to be there. And that if I had a flavor of the month driver, so to speak, or somebody that I liked for a little while that, you could always go back and root for Kyle. It was easy to do, but he wasn't always my favorite driver. And I recognize now that that's really, it's sad because you come back around to now and you recognize that guy's never going to drive again. He's never going to be around the sport again. He's never going to be around all these people again. And in that moment, you have a sense of regret that you didn't. Maybe you could have done more to appreciate a talent like that. And I think that speaks to some of the NASCAR audience as well. I think we just assume that these guys are going to be legendary and they're going to be around forever. I mean, Kyle was 41 years old. To put into context to how tragic that is, I mean, wherever RCR wound up on performance for the next couple of years, there was no reason to think that Kyle Busch himself couldn't be a competitive winner in, especially in the trucks and Xfinity. He was still very dominant in those series, as evidenced by what he did at Dover in his last win ever. So all those things are evident and all those things are true. And it left me with a sense of just kind of sadness that it's like, that guy was a legend. I knew he was a legend. And maybe I should have been like, it should have been more obvious to me that guy needs, to be recognized more and appreciated more. And I felt bad that after that first year in RCR, it felt like, he had kind of been mitigated down in the attention of not just myself, but other people. Because I would have loved to have seen what he would have continued to do. I mean, it came out last week that in all of this, IndyCar released what he would have run at the Indy 500 when he tried to run, I believe, in 2017 in the M&M's car. And they released that paint scheme, and they recognized him during the Indy 500. It's one of those moments where you go, God, I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen him run the Rolex 24 again. It would have given you an opportunity to appreciate just how awesome and incredible he was outside of when you were younger and you were first mesmerized by him, because NASCAR is a sport of success, and too much success tends to wear on some people. I know it colored my opinion about Jimmy Johnson and so many other drivers for so long, and when guys weren't succeeding, you kind of shifted your focus away. But Kyle deserves so much more than he truly got in the end, and I think now you'll see people come out and retroactively, myself included, understand and try to look back and just go, this may never be seen again. We saw what we saw, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So obviously, we send our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the entire Busch family. I've had the chance to meet Kurt years ago. Kurt was really nice. I know that I've been around Brexton before at Millbridge, and from all the accounts I've ever known about him, he's a great young man with his head on straight, and it's something that is truly great and admirable, and it speaks to the young man that Kyle and Samantha raised, and obviously our thoughts are with her and the rest of the Busch family during this tough time. I do want to touch on what we did have as far as a racing event, because we spent last week talking about it. We gave you the preview show with Matthew Owens on Tuesday. It was great fun there to talk Indy 500, Coke 600, and damn, we were so close. We had the runner-up in both the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. I had David Malukas losing in the closest finish in Indy 500 history, and I had Christopher Bell, who wound up second after Daniel Suarez won due to a rain stoppage in the Coke 600. The Coke 600, I was there on Sunday after I watched the Indy 500 on my couch. And what an incredible race the Indy 500 was, and what an incredible race the Coke 600 was. I just wish it had gone green. That's really the only knock you can give that Coke 600. The Indy 500, guys were so aggressive off the drop. It was not an Alex Blow domination like I feared it would, although it played out very similar to what I said. David Malukas wasn't going to lead a lot of laps, but he was going to be in the right position. I knew he had the car. I knew he had the speed. I knew he had the wherewithal. The only thing he could have done was sent him and both Felix Rosenqvist over the catch fence with the block you would have had to pull to keep Felix from winning that race, because what an incredible last lap that was out of Felix Rosenqvist. If you haven't gone and watched it, Will Buxton's call or Matthew Owens' call on TikTok, you can watch those two best calls I saw the entire weekend of the Indy 500. They were all the foreign broadcasts that were great as well. But, I mean, and just an incredible race start to finish. There were a couple brief pauses in there with some weather concerns at Indy, but it got through. It was phenomenal. Guys were aggressive. Joseph Newgarden picked up like 18 spots, thought he was going to be in a spot to win the race, which would have given him his third, but he ultimately has it spin off the bottom of turn 4. You saw guys get up there and lead like Connor Daly, who he was in another position to win this race. He's been close so many times. Pato O'Ward was in the mix. A guy that IndyCar needs to bank on to keep being good at Indy and good at some of these other racetracks they have. This is a huge momentum builder as it is a lot of years for fan bases of IndyCar. And the only unfortunate part is this is an incredible race where you had a side-by-side battle for the win, and now we're going to go to the streets of Detroit and run a street course. And no disrespect to the fine folks at Detroit who put it on, but that race is never going to be all that enticing as far as a side-by-side or competitive battle. They might get a couple back-and-forth moments. It is nothing close to it. And the unfortunate part for IndyCar right now is they have got to figure out a schedule to get more ovals on there. I cannot stress that enough. IndyCar on oval is as entertaining as anything in the United States as far as auto racing is concerned, and they do it so few times. There are too many street courses, a little too many on the road course side. I'll prefer a road course every time over a street course, but I have to get more ovals on this schedule. I mean, we're talking just a handful of instances throughout a year, and I don't know what you have to do to ensure safety. I think the field size is the first thing, and they have it on a controlled level right now. There has to be more to do to get these ovals on, because that product right there, while 6.5 million people, as many as 8 million people were watching, you're not going to get that at Detroit. And if you want this sport to be anything more than just a series that also has the Indy 500, which is the most important thing we do, you have got to give fans more like that. That's the stuff they draw to. As for the Coke 600, the Coke 600 was quite compelling as well. We had some drivers drop out early, some wrecks. We had a lot of back and forth battling up front. The Toyotas, though, were so dominant. I mean, we were talking about Reddick, Bell, who came in later. Ty Gibbs was up front all day. You had, Denny Hamlin constantly mixed. First Chevy for much of that race that was anywhere near those Toyotas was Kyle Larson. Won stage one, but ultimately they just didn't have the pace of those Toyotas. And at a couple points during that final stage there, we had some rain start to factor in. I was down in turn 4. I was giving reports and texts to friends and whatnot about what was going on. It was very light. And then SVG plays a strategy call, gets out to the lead. They bring a caution. It's delayed. We're under rain conditions, thinking there's lightning in the area. There's something coming. We got to go. We got to get this in. And damn, if it weren't for just a little bit more weather, SVG might have stolen Trackhouse's second Coke 600 in back-to-back years. Well, that didn't plan out, so they went back green. Daniel Suarez cycles back up there, gets off on a restart, gets out to the lead, and then the downpour ensues, the lightning comes, and that's all she wrote. I mean, it's one of those situations that plays out in that race. It's longer, and after that 500-mile mark, you start to see weird stuff happen. Drivers get aggressive. They try to play a strategy. The weather might get involved. It was really good. I hate that it didn't go green. If it had gone green, I think you see a Toyota like Reddick or like Gibbs or Bell. Bell, I think, was second. I was this close to having that prediction right. I would have been so happy if I could come on here and brag that I had Malukas and Bell, but didn't work out that way. Phenomenal racing. Obviously a sad weekend in so many regards, a mournful weekend, but the racing that was brought to the track on Sunday brought a smile to a lot of people's face, and it was great stuff to see. Moving along, we've got some other topics here tonight. As you haven't figured it out right now, with the Carolina Hurricanes are one game away for their first Stanley Cup appearance since 2006. And if you don't remember what happened in 2006, I'm glad to remind you that the Carolina Hurricanes defeated the Edmonton Oilers in 7 games to win the Stanley Cup Finals, when a young 8-year-old Collins Janus was watching in Raleigh, North Carolina, or in Holly Springs, North Carolina, to be specific, on the couch with the rest of the family. What a moment in time that was. What I would love to go back and see that moment again. And the Hurricanes went full belt to ass last night on the Montreal Canadiens. 4-0 win, 3 goals in quick succession in the first period. I mean, it was one after the other after the other. I mean, you had PK Subban at home on a couch watching these Canadians get melted down in quick order. Great line production from the Blake Stankoven, Taylor Hall line. You had great work out of those guys all series long. Finally, some of the big names like Aho and Svetch were getting more on the score sheet as well. Aho gets a goal last night. Captain Jordan Stahl gets involved there as well. Everything is rolling in the right direction, and I have to give credit where credit is due. He's been the reason I've been skeptical about this team. Freddie Anderson played a whale of a game last night, stood up tall in that situation and got the win for it, and got a shutout win to boot against the Canadiens. Game 5 tomorrow. going to be out watching that one, and it'll be very interesting to see if the Canes can clinch this one up and then turn their attention to the Vegas Golden Knights, who got a shocking sweep over the Colorado Avalanche, if we're being honest. The Avalanche, despite their injuries, came into this thing as the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup. And the Knights roll through a depleted but still formidable Colorado roster and take 4 games and go to the Stanley Cup Finals. And all doing this while firing Bruce Cassidy with 9 games left to go in the regular season and handing it over to John Tortorella. It's a system that should not work, but it has worked so far for the Vegas Golden Knights. And I mean switching coaches, not with John Tortorella's coaching. I mean, everybody knows that John Tortorella has great coaching qualities, but he usually burns himself out in most places. Similar to a guy like Mike Keenan in that regard, I guess you could say. But it's been interesting. I think the Canes need to go ahead and just close this sucker out, though I won't be shocked if Montreal comes ready to bear. I mean, today they actually just recognized that Claude Lemieux had passed away. He was there for Game 3 with the lighting of the torch, so to speak, in Montreal, and he passes away. I'm not so certain they're not going to have something to rally behind and steal Game 5 tomorrow, but I hope the Hurricanes can close this thing out, get to a cup for the first time since 2006, third cup appearance in franchise history if they're able to do that. Montreal was last in the cup, I want to say 2020, 2021 area against Tampa was the last time they made the cup. Canes got it done in a big way, though, last night over the Habs, so great stuff in that series. It'll be a hell of a series between Vegas and Carolina. Ratings, I've already seen people talk about, even if it was Montreal, what the ratings would look like for a series in Vegas. And I go pound sand. You don't watch sports for TV ratings, and I don't give a single rat's ass about TV ratings when it comes to competitive sports playing out on the ice or the field or the racetrack or anything. I don't give a shit about what you think or hope for a sports rating. Going through the list of topics tonight, Kirby Smart said the quiet part out loud. And if you don't know what the quiet part is, Kirby Smart in a press availability this week was talking about it, said he spoke to his president in the past and says if we can't figure out national rules that everybody can play behind, I'm more than fine taking the SEC and doing what we do and playing on our own and breaking away from the NCAA with regards to the playoff expansion and everything else. He said the quiet part out loud. Go back and watch a couple episodes ago. What did I tell you? The Super League is a-coming, folks. It's coming, and it's going to come to put the final death blow to the sport of college football that you and I all love so much. I mean, just the out-and-out level of delusion and self-importance that Kirby Smart had in that statement. That the SEC could just break away and it'll all be good. It won't ruin everything. Like you're not looking beyond your own nose to see that this could kill the sport of college football the way we love it. And I get it. It's probably inevitable at some point. But I will beat down the damn door to keep what we love, the regional rivalries and other things that we talk about oh so often. I talked about this with the Sporting News' Bill Bender last week on the Golf Shop Radio Show. I don't understand the idea of moving away to more neutral sites for these big-time matchups like Clemson and Georgia, or, you know, if you want to get Florida State and other schools involved and putting games off campus. I don't understand it. We have got to keep what we love about the game of college football in the priority list, no matter where the money goes, no matter where the conferences go. The matchups need to matter. The regional rivalries need to matter. The non-conference rivalries need to matter. And none of those things are prioritized anymore, all in pursuit of almighty dollar. I mean, it's just embarrassing. But Kirby's just fine with that. And that's what's most annoying, is the attitude, the casual kind of, if he kills it, I don't care. We're better than everybody. Like, it just, stop. Step outside yourself for a minute. Recognize that the sport as a whole needs to be smarter about these things, or you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna be the NFL junior, and that's it. And college football fans love to say they hate the NFL or they don't love the NFL because of the way the game is played or all of this or that. They love the fact they can root for their colleges and the regionality of it all. Well, that'll all be dead if you get the wish of the Super League. That's all gone. You're going to wake up one morning and the sport you love will have no resemblance. And some people say that already. So take that with a fair amount of confidence that if it keeps going this way, it's only going to get worse. I am trying to be the wall that slows down this progress in the opposite direction. I am trying to ring the bell. I'm trying to do whatever to tell people this is not sustainable. It is not going to work. You are going to lose. You may make a shit ton of money, but the sport and the TV and everything else will damage what you have spent years and years perfecting. And now it looks like the Big Ten and the SEC are in a pissing war of their own. So maybe the Super League happens, but it doesn't include one or the other, and then they have to split into another. I mean, this is absurd. Listen to what we're talking about. Just because a couple ADs and a couple of commissioners got it in their head that they matter more than the game. And that's the problem. That's the best way I can wrap that up. Since apparently I'm in a mood to talk about the downfall of things, let's talk about the downfall of automobile design. Yes, Ferrari. I love Ferrari. Guess what? I can talk about Ferrari like this and know I'm never going to be able to own a Ferrari. So I can talk this comment and know that even if they see it 50 years from now, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to be able to afford one. I'm never going to be able to get one. Doesn't hurt me to say this now. The new EV, the Luce, I believe is the way you pronounce it in the Italian, and if the part Italian in me is going to get butchered by it if I'm saying it wrong, that thing looks like shit. That thing looks awful. Designed in collaboration with former Apple designer Johnny Ive, and Johnny Ive was a revolutionary guy in the design process for Apple when Apple came back with Steve Jobs in the early 2000s and all the things they created. For a guy like that, of that creative aesthetic, to come out with a car that looks like that, I'll put the picture up right there. What are we doing? I mean, we're already in a downtrend of car designs over the last years, and you could look at any major manufacturer you want, and the overwhelming design flaws that are just evident everywhere. I'm not even worried about the EV part of it, because eventually you're going to see all these manufacturers try the EV thing. And some already have, and some are recognizing that there's no infrastructure yet for it. They don't have the ability to sell it the way they want to. They don't have the ability to produce them the way they want to. They don't have the market interest the way they thought they were going to at this point in time. So all those factors against them, I don't have any problem with Ferrari wanting to utilize some of the EV technology and some of those things for performance. I get that. That's the way it's going to work. But it's got to look better than this. One of the former higher-ups at Ferrari, now working over at McLaren. I forget his name. I'm going to try and pull it back up here. He had a comment the other day speaking about it in a public airport or whatever, and really trying to be hush-hush about it, but alluding to that it damages Ferrari. I mean, and Ferrari is bulletproof. I understand that. Bulletproof. They've made some of the finest, most incredible automobiles to ever live. Everyone, and myself included, has longed for the memories of like an F40 or a 330 P4 or the 250 GTO or the 308 GT. I mean, there's so many. The LaFerrari. You could go up and down. I love Ferrari. More so than probably any European manufacturer of automobile. But this should never existed. It shouldn't have. For a company that protects their brand like a hawk, as they should, I have no issue with when they send a cease and desist to a creator like deadmau5 or whoever else wanting to paint their car and damage the badge or alter the badge. I have no problem with when they tell people to kick rocks. You can't own a vehicle if you're going to do it. That's great protection of the brand. But to be honest with you, how is this a good idea? I mean, I was just playing the new Forza Horizon 6 the other day. It's like nobody would want to download that and drive around Japan in that thing. I mean, again, like I said, Ferrari's not damaged by what I'm saying. I'm just disappointed that this is where we went to, because they have designed the most beautiful cars to ever exist in a lot of ways. But this is just a misstep, and I'm calling it out as a misstep. That's all it is. You can undo it, but to act as if it's like some revolutionary thing that is going to set the world of Ferrari apart again, like that ain't going to do it. That ain't going to do it. I mean, the part that it's an EV, I mean, it is what it is. The EVs are coming. They're not going away. They're just not going to be the way that we. Fortunately for people like myself who are petrol heads, it's not going to be a factor as an immediate future as we thought it might be. So the EV thing will have to take more time to get there. But you give a leg up to some of the other competition in that market, McLaren, Lamborghini, all these other car manufacturers that people hang on their bedroom walls when they're a kid. I mean, this is just. I mean, I saw Lamborghini going. We're glad to still be making cars that people dream about. I mean, that's just this is like when Ford came out with a Bronco, and then Jeep came out with the Jeep did the new Wrangler or whatever it was, and they could do the horses running or whatever to with all their marketing and campaign and come out with something a little faster or whatever, a little more performance to it. There's all these different tactics, and I don't know why Ferrari, as protected as they would have let this leave the drawing board. And this is no disrespect to the talent of guys that are in that room or even Johnny Ive, but this is just a miss. And like I said, I could point out dozens of other examples. I'll put a couple up in this space right here. But again, I ain't going to worry about it. I'm not worried about saying stuff like this. Is what it is. Have to call it like I see it. Speaking to the other stories on our sheet, we've got the MLB early season returns. Yes, we are between 52 and 55 games into the Major League Baseball season, and we get our first look at the proposal that the league is going to give to the MLB Players Association, and what will ultimately lead to a lockout in 2027, because the very first thing at the tippity top of what their agenda is, that so disgust, dismayed, whatever you tippity top of their list, we get the thing that ultimately ends all negotiations and leads to work stoppages, is that salary cap. Projected at $245 million as a cap, with a floor at $171 or so million. That is a great thing to see. A floor to get teams to spend up to a point would be a phenomenal thing for the league, but it's ultimately going to have to come with a cap, and there's no way on God's green earth the Players Association gets to an agreement to put a cap on a league where they can get $700 or $800 million fully guaranteed. I mean, in these extensive contracts we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. That's not going to happen, because you have to give the players something in return. And I don't know what on earth at this point is a benefit to the players when they have the ability right now, that the league, that this is the one union in all of professional sports that figured out how to get to a league with no cap, where players could get $70 million a year for 10 years. No other sport can do that. None of them can get the guarantees that these players are getting. So I don't know what on earth the league could turn around and offer. Maybe a shortened season, less games for more money. That's about the only thing I can think of, but I don't really know that's I don't think that's going to be the answer. I really don't. And the tragic part about this is, again, the game is doing so well right now that a work stoppage in 27 is going to kill all momentum. But if the owners are going to come back and say we need a cap, there's no way the players aren't going to go, well, we're going to lock up and we're not going to play. No negotiation is going to include a cap from the owners, from the Players Association side. So I have no idea where we go from here other than to lock out in 27 and kill it all. So if you're worried about having no baseball in 2027, then you better be watching right now. And unless you're a Red Sox fan, a Giants fan, a Mets fan, or or an Angels fan, you still got hope. If you're one of those groups that I just said, including myself as a Red Sox fan, just get ready for a long time of miserable feelings and no baseball. No worthwhile baseball, and then none at all in 27. Weirdly enough, we'll go division by division, and we'll talk first about the American League East, because that's where my heart lies. And my Boston Red Sox are in dead last. Absolute dead last. 11 and a half games back out of it. They are lost. They are rudderless. Craig Breslow made a series of mistakes starting first, which what we talked about weeks ago, and there's no trending upward for it. I will give credit where credit's due. I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early. Those guys are developing at a great time. You know, the season's already done, so might as well get them in there and get as many meaningful starts as possible. Let them work through their repertoire. They look great. They're developing great. Ranger Suarez had looked like a guy that we made the right decision to spend the money on, but ultimately there's just no offense. Wilson Contreras has been, outside of Willer Abreu, the only thing to really talk about in the offensive side, and he's been phenomenal. I'm glad they made the deal to get him. I think he's been great. Outside of that, nothing good to talk about. Nothing against Chad Tracy. He's inherited an absolute mess. Baltimore in that spot just above, like I said, this is about where I saw them. They didn't add enough to make a big enough impact to go up that far. Toronto trending back up in the division as I thought they would. Did not get off to the start that anyone thought they would, but they are still formidable enough that if they get to a 500 or better well before the All-Star break, you're going to have to watch for them. New York sitting right behind the Tampa Bay Rays, who again just defy all belief as far as they're just so much smarter than everybody. They win in unconventional ways with unconventional roster design and everything else. They still sit atop of the division at 34-19. Moving to the most confusing division, or second most confusing division, I'll say that. Second most confusing division in baseball, the American League Central. It is Detroit and dead last, as everybody predicted, right? I mean, that makes sense. It has just been much in the same way in Boston. It has just been a colossal disappointment with what we have seen there from all parties involved. They need offense as well. They need help in the worst ways. They've been banged up. Framber Valdez is a jackass, so it seems like he is rearing his head in Detroit, stirring up controversy, creating issues there. Just awful stuff. And then Kansas City, a team I had projected as a playoff caliber option, has just been ravaged with injuries. Cole Reagan's hopefully back in the next week or so. That might bolster some of their efforts. They're not out of things yet. They're 10 games out of a divisional lead, but they're not dead yet. But they need help, and they need it quickly. One of the early season surprises up at the top of the division for so long has fallen back to third. Minnesota. Again, I thought I watched you die, but apparently no, you just restructured. You're 5 games out. You're 27-29, a little under 500 right now, but honestly, kudos to you kids. That's as phenomenal that they're in the mix as much as they have been so far this season. But the surprise of all surprises in the American League Central and basically the American League as a whole, the Chicago White Sox, 1 game over 500, 3.5 back in the division, looking really competitive. And it's due in large part to the Japanese slugger Minnetonka Murakami. I knew I was going to butcher that at some point. I felt so confident. I said it before. I even worked it up a little bit before. Murakami has been AL MVP caliber good to start this season. And you have to think of all those teams that are sitting there kicking themselves. Even the White Sox are not offering him a longer contract during the posting option during the offseason to try to get him on their rosters. I mean, Chicago gets him at a deal, but it's only a short-term deal, so damn, they missed out on an opportunity to lock a guy like that down. He's played phenomenal. But at the top, it is the Cleveland Guardians doing their thing, much like the Rays. They're just smart. They do what they do well. They play their version of Guardians baseball in the way the Rays play their version of Rays baseball, and they're so consistent. They pitch well. They do a lot of things well. They've got some more offense than in years past, so again, sitting atop the division at 33-25. The American League West, not a lot of surprises. LA is dog shit. We said that. Houston's pretty bad as well. I mean, they threw a no-hitter, a combined no-no, so good for them. I mean, I got that going for them. I mean, they do that probably once a year, it feels like nowadays. Texas, a little under my projections at this point in the year, but still only 2 games out of a wild card, out of the division lead, speaking about just how bad this division has been right now. Kudos to the Athletics. They looked really solid. They're 2 games under 500 and half a game back out of the division lead, which means the Seattle Mariners, my pick to make the playoffs, win the division, sits atop with a losing record at 28-29. Saw somebody the other day discussing this. I don't care they have a losing record. You win the division, you still get a playoff spot. We're not doing the dumb shit that the other leagues are trying to talk about where we take away the winning the divisions or winning the conferences. Spare me. Everybody plays by the same rules. I don't care how good your division is or how bad it is. Be as good as the division or be as bad as the division. You know what you're up against. Seattle right now, I don't think they'll be under 500. I mean, forever? No. They're a good team. They've got pieces. Cal Raleigh is hit for nothing. If you get that guy straightened out, get a couple pieces like Brendan Donovan playing the right way and in the right direction, you could be fine. You've got the pitching. We know that. They just need the offense to figure itself out a bit more. But they're in the division lead, and I think they still win that division. NL, best team in baseball. Underlooked, overlooked, however you want to look at it. Atlanta, number 1, 37-19. Sitting atop the division, 8 games over the team I projected to win this division, who had already fired a manager. And Don Mattingly, tip of the cap to him. They've got those boys playing in the right directions. The Philadelphia Phillies sit second, 8 games back. Like I said, maybe the division, they're going to need some help there if they want to try to win it, but they can make the playoffs. They're a formidable lineup when both Harper and Schwarber are doing their thing. Both those guys are looking to midseason form already. Great stuff out of them. Washington, still right there with them, a half game behind. James Wood is looking crazy. Almost said James Woods. James Wood looks phenomenal. C.J. Abrams has been exactly as we all hoped he could be a couple years ago. They've got a negative run differential. And it doesn't matter. They're still in the hunt. They're above 500. They're alive and kicking with a new manager and all those pieces in place. And I didn't think firing Davey Martinez was the right call there. And it may not be in the long term because I think Davey is deserving of another opportunity. And I think he's a high IQ, smart baseball person. But sometimes it takes a change in the locker room. And maybe that might be what they needed to get him out of the cellar. Because they're getting help from the fact that Miami, they're doing the Miami thing. They're 26-31, 11.5 behind the division leader, which, I mean, it is what it is. But they fired Skip a couple years ago. This is the penance you pay for making bad baseball decisions. And in dead last, with a 23-33 record, 14 games out, and a negative 29 run differential, the New York Mets. I don't take any joy in the Mets struggling. I'm not one of those people that hates them. I don't have a problem with the Mets. I just, they go for the splash moves. They go for the big pieces, and they never worry about having cohesive lineups that work, cohesive defensive lineups that gel together. They don't worry about putting together a club. They worry about putting together big pieces that they think could get themselves somewhere. And that's the problem with the way Uncle Stevie sets up his rosters in New York. Looking down at the NL Central, you have the most entertaining division in baseball. I've said it for years. The NL Central is my favorite division to watch as an outsider. I have something to love about all these teams. It's the only division in baseball I could say I could root for any of these teams and be happy to do it. You've got, in dead last, you got the Pittsburgh Pirates with a winning record, 29-27, 5.5 out of the lead. They've looked really strong at different points. You got Brandon Lau out there hitting everything it moves. You've got Paul Skeens continuing to be Paul Skeens. You've got so many fun storylines in this division. You've got Cincinnati at 29-26. They have their cast of characters still flying under the radar, well managed by Terry Francona. So, I mean, it's reasonable to believe they're going to stay about this for most of the season. Maybe they go add at the deadline. Who knows? A couple of these teams in this division are going to be in a position to add. The Cubs, however, have struggled in recent weeks, 1-9 in their last 10, still sitting in third, tied for second, 4.5 games back of the division lead. Pete Crow Armstrong's been having a rough go of it, got into a fight with the fan through the fence the other day, overthrew a guy, airmailed a throw yesterday against Pittsburgh. I mean, he's a guy you need to have straighten things out. But again, with the veteran leadership of a guy like Alex Bregman and some of those other guys in that lineup, they're going to be in the hunt, and I think they'll be just fine. They are suffering through right now a slump of sorts that they have to rectify. And they'll have a big series, I believe, this weekend against St. Louis, if I remember correctly. St. Louis, big surprise to me. Thought they were dead in the water. Sold off Donovan, sold off Arenado. They move all these different pieces aside, and so far, you had Dustin May, who the Red Sox tried and experimented with and was a disaster of a move last year. Gave up a James Tibbs for that. It was ultimately nothing good in Boston. Almost threw a no-hitter the other day. So, I mean, they have a lot of guys overachieving right now. Do I think this is sustainable? No. But, I mean, they've got guys producing. You got Burleson, you got other guys still up there hitting, doing their thing, and they're getting enough pitching. It's just the way it is right now. Now, like I said, to win the division, that's going to be a little harder to do, but I mean, they're competitive with everybody they play. In the top of the division, most people could have said this. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we said Milwaukee or Chicago, went back and forth, ended up with Chicago, but Milwaukee sits atop the NL Central. Nothing more to really write home about. Crazy run differential, plus 78 in the run differential department for the Milwaukee Brewers. And then lastly, to the NL West, unfortunately, Colorado is back to being Colorado, despite some fun starts at the beginning of the year. San Francisco's the big mess there, and I really hate that it's going this way for San Francisco, because I actually enjoyed what Buster Posey was bringing to the table as a general manager, some of the things he was trying to do. I liked the Vitello hire at the time. I thought it was aggressive. I thought it was interesting. I thought he was a candidate that could go from the college level to this level, and so far he has looked overmatched at the role of manager so far this season. It's disappointing. They're not a terribly talented team either. That's the tough part. And the guys that they do pay the money to be talented are just underperforming in broad strokes terms. San Diego, right there where they need to be, 4.5 out of the division lead. They've led at different points. They've looked very good. Mason Miller is a monster right now. Arizona, trending in the right direction. Ketel Marte's hitting. Nolan Arenado, my guy, is hitting. He's doing his thing. I knew he would eventually get it worked out, and I think his change of scenery was all he needed, unfortunately, with no more protection in that St. Louis lineup. Now he has it. He's hitting grand slams, the fastest to ever hit a grand slam in a ball game. I mean, with the fewest pitches the other day, that was insane. I think 6 pitches to hit a grand slam to start a ball game in the first inning is insane. And the Dodgers are doing their thing. And they're powered not just by Shohei Ohtani, but Andy Pages might end up being the National League most valuable player at this point in the season. He has been phenomenal. 13 home runs, batting over 300, was benched last season during the postseason at points, made that huge catch in Game 7 to keep the Dodgers season alive. I mean, he has turned a corner, and he has looked phenomenal. He's picked up the slack where my guy, Mookie Betts, has struggled this season. Some of their other guys have been beat up and hurt. He is really delivering for this Dodgers team, and of course, Shohei Ohtani's doing his thing. So there you go. Those are the early season returns. Enjoy it while we have it. We're probably not playing in 2027, and I hate that I have to say that. I can't stand it, but that's probably going to happen. So we go to our final 3 segments of the night. Long show. We were kind of did an abridged version of the show last week after giving you the preview show. What's got my attention this week? Went to a bar restaurant establishment in Charlotte to watch game number 3 between the Canadians and the Hurricanes, called Angry Ales, which is over in Montfort there, which I didn't know was a thing, but it's, in Charlotte. And had, a great time with my buddies watching the game, but we're reading the menu. I ordered the food. The quesadilla was great. Had that. By the way, there's no sponsors to this show, so none of this is, I've not been given anything. This is not paid promotion. This is just me talking about it because I genuinely liked it. If anybody that I talk positively about would like to sponsor the show, by all means, I'll take your money and we'll put you all over the show. We'll give you a banner ad. We'll do whatever. Angry Ales, if you're listening, I love you. What's got my attention this week, though, is on your menu, and it is the deep-fried Little Debbie oatmeal cream pie. And I'm going to post the picture of it here. I saw it on the menu. I said to my buddies, guys, we have to do this for science. We have to know what this tastes like. And it was phenomenal. It sounds like it shouldn't make any sense at all. It should sound like a trashy thing that you wouldn't like. You get at a state fair. It's phenomenal. A little butterscotch drizzle, a little ice cream. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good. I mean, I had to put it in the show this week because I've never seen anything like that. And I grew up going to the North Carolina State Fair. You can fry anything at that damn thing. I had the fried Oreos, you get the fried mutton leg, whatever the hell you want. I've never seen anybody do a fried oatmeal cream pie. And you'd think it would be nasty, but it was so good. So that's what's got my attention this week. An abridged version of that. It's food. You never know what you're going to get and what's got my attention this week. Hat of the Week. We've got a new entry for Hat of the Week in the collection this week. Was at Charlotte Motor Speedway and hooked myself up with a Western Auto racing team hat from the 90s, and I'm a big fan of it. It's a Darrell Waltrip signed hat. I love when DW ran his own team and had the Western Auto colors on that car. I met Jeff Hammond years ago, got him to sign a poster of that car. I've always been a fan of DW and what he brought, and Hollywood Hammond and all that stuff. But when I saw this hat, I was like, this is coming home with me. Love the Western Auto Parts, America racing team, and all the merch. I very seldom see stuff like this, and I love a good autographed hat, and Darrell's got such a nice autograph, so put that in the show as well. And it was a lot of fun to go out and check out all the merch you can go find at the tents outside, and then you go into the hollers and check all those out. But we have one final segment to do, and it's a segment we've gotten a lot of love over the last couple of weeks about. It is our Power Rankings segment. And on this week's edition of the Power Rankings, I'm going to actually have to do a little wardrobe change here really quickly. Don't worry, you're not going to see anything you don't want to see. Unless you're not a fan of this, then you will understand rather quickly why we are doing it. It is time to power rank the top 10 Kiss studio albums. My favorite band of all time, yes. I love a lot of musical groups. I love a lot of solo artists, but Kiss is the be-all, end-all, the start of it all for me. And as I talked about earlier in the year, got to meet Peter Criss at a signing in Concord. I have been a diehard Kiss fan since I was in middle school. Probably even earlier than that, but I saw Kiss for the first time back then, and I was hooked, and I was ruined, and nothing else has ever been the same. So I'm going to power rank my favorite Kiss albums, and obviously this is an Alive 2 t-shirt. I'm not going to put the live records on there because it would just be unfair. You could go Alive 2, Alive, however you want to rank them, and then everything else falls behind that. But I do love Kiss's studio discography, and a lot of people say, well, they're a better live band. I'm like, I understand that, but there's some incredible stuff across their discography. Once you get past all the bombast and the pyro and the personas and the characters and the makeup, there's a lot of great stuff, including some of the non-makeup stuff, which is included in this list. We don't have just all makeup albums on this list. This is a top 10 of the entire discography of Kiss. Obviously, the original lineup is my favorite. It is the best lineup. It is the be-all and end-all for so many people, and it's a lineup I never got to see in person, but I've grown up watching, loving that lineup, and they're featured heavily in this list, but we're going to go down. Fortunately, I've got all these on vinyl, some in different shapes or others, but we're going to start first with number 10 on the list. It is the first non-makeup Kiss album released in 1983. It is Lick It Up with Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr in the band there. This is really one of the heavier Kiss albums of the 80s. I hate that this is only the one, really, this is a great sister album to Creatures of the Night, the last Kiss makeup album of the 80s. Songwriting-wise, they were trying to follow suit with a lot of the other bands of the time, and really this is a strong effort in that era, in the vein of what music was like in the mid-'80s. And what breaks my heart is that really between Creatures and through to Animalize, you get this creative writing from the band, but if they had just been able to work things out and keep this kind of going, they might have even had a higher success rate in the 80s than they even did. Part of that comes from the writing influence of Vinnie Vincent on this album. That's a hotly debated topic. I'm not going to get into it. Vinnie had his battles with Kiss over the years, but what he brings songwriting and guitar playing wise on this album and on Creatures should be applauded. You've got highlight tracks like Not for the Innocent, Young and Wasted, All Hell's Breaking Loose, A Million to One. I love these tracks. One of the rare albums you get all four guys to co-write a song. I believe they all have a writing credit on All Hell's Breaking Loose. So it's a phenomenal album in its own right. Second best of the non-makeup albums. Maybe that means there's another one coming. And in fact, there is, because at number 9, we have the 1992 release Revenge. And this is a German copy, you can see, because the S's have been changed in Germany due to the lightning bolt nature of it looking a little too close for comfort for Germans to the SS that logos there from the Nazi period of time. But again, you'll see that throughout Germany mostly, I think, and a couple other countries might have done it as well. I'm not positive. But this is the hard-edge 90s look of Kiss, wearing the leather dusters and whatnot. And it's truly like back to, raw, gritty, dirty, hard rock, heavy stuff. Like the drumming by Eric Singer on this album It's his first album with him as a full member of the band after the tragic passing of Eric Carr, and all that situation is terrible. To lose Eric, who was such a great spirit of the band for so many years. But Eric Singer brings a unique style of play to his sets of drums as well on this album. But you get really return to form for Gene, who was throughout the mid-'80s had his attention in films and his attention away from the band, producing other acts like Liza Minnelli, I believe, Wendy O. Williams. He worked with a lot of people, was in a lot of movies. His attention is focused back in the right direction by really the project before this album, which was Hot in the Shade, but you see the heaviest stuff Gene has done. Unholy, Spit, you get Domino, and then the Paul stuff on this album I really love. Take It Off, Tough Love, and Heart of Chrome is my favorite Paul song from like 86 on to like the Psycho Circus album. I mean, Heart of Chrome is a absolute slap in the face of like anger and frustration, and it's so good. I love it. God Gave Rock and Roll to You, the last video that Eric Carr is in, and they literally got him out of the hospital to do that video because he wanted to be a part of it so bad. And you could tell he was battling his chemo at the time and doing all those things for his cancer. But it's a powerful moment and a testament to his presence in the band. His a cappella vocals are on that song. It's great, and it's a great album. And it also includes Car Jam as a tribute to Eric Carr on here, which was a jam session originally done by he and Ace Frehley that later became the track Breakout. It was originally titled the demo as Heaven. They recut it with Bruce on guitar and Bob Ezrin, who was a producer of music from The Elder when that song was written, or that jam was written, found it in a tape box and in his studio there and found it. And it's the only drum solo that Eric put down on record, so they had to include it on this album. It's a great album. So that's number 9. Number 8, had to get a little creative on this one because this album is actually hanging on my wall in my parents' house still. This is Dress to Kill. This is my copy out of the Originals, which is the compilation from the 70s there. If you can knock this album for anything, it's that the material is strong, but it was so rushed in the fact they had to come up with a new album while they were on the road, put things together. They took the last bits of songs they had from the previous 2, they put them together here. They wrote stuff in the recording process, and Neil Bogart, man in charge of Casablanca Records, produces it. Has a very almost not bubblegum pop, but a more poppy sensibility to it. If you could have gotten an Eddie Kramer, somebody to produce this record, it might even be higher because it's got some absolutely incredible tracks in there. Love Her All I Can, She, Two Timer, Getaway, Rock Bottom. There's some great stuff on here. It's just ultimately these songs are so quick, in and out, 2.5 minutes long. I mean, the whole album itself is like not even a half hour. It's so good, but it's so limited. And what an album cover. The suits on the streets of New York, it's great. A great title. Everything about it's great. It's just you want more. It left you wanting more. And ultimately, that's what keeps it down further on the list as far as cohesive packages go. Number 7 is an album that at the time most people were either confused by or, maybe misguided at the time in their anger toward disco. But it is Dynasty, and it's categorized by the big hit off this album, I Was Made for Loving You, which is like the most successful Kiss song around the globe, most streamed Kiss song around the globe. But there's so much more to this album. You have the Rolling Stones cover by Ace Frehley. This is really an album after Peter has started to work his way out of the group. He hasn't worked his way out until Unmasked, but was finally let go from that period of time after, battling some addiction issues as well, wanting more creative input, battling a car wreck around the same time. So he's not on this album. He has, other than the one track that he sings and plays on, which is his track, which is Dirty Livin'. And you hate that, but Anton Fig does an admirable job on this album. Anton's an incredible drummer who drummed with Ace, was in the David Letterman late night band for so many years, played with Joe Bonamassa and a bunch of other talented musicians. I love Anton's drumming. He's all over this record other than Dirty Livin'. But again, the big hits, are what color this album, which are I Was Made for Loving You and Sure Know Something. 2000, man. I love the deeper tracks like X-Ray Eyes by Gene. I love Save Your Love by Ace. Magic Touch, another one of my like top 5, 6, 7 Paul Stanley songs. I love Magic Touch, and it has a really interesting bit of solo there, an abridged kind of solo by Paul. It's sad that this ultimately deems the end of the original lineup of Kiss, but this is a really strong album if you want to get past the quote-unquote disco track. And I love I Was Made for Loving You. I love Sure Know Something. Those are great tracks just because they're poppier in nature, and people at the time didn't appreciate it because, you know, there was so much new emerging music that Kiss could have taken a hint from. I don't begrudge them for putting it on this album. The problems you have come from when you don't market correct on the next couple. And I love those for what they are too, but I can understand why a Kiss fan from the early 70s might have listened to Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or AC/DC at this time when Kiss got softer in a lot of ways. It was more, the concerts were filled with kids, but the music is still strong if you listen to it and give that album a chance. Number 6, going back to the early days of Kiss. This is another one from the originals because this one is also hanging on my parents' wall. It is Hotter Than Hell with the raunchy back album cover photo shoot, The Party. This is just a great example of what Kiss was in the early days. They were dark, they were heavy, they were unlike anything you'd seen at the time. They had great songs in this, Going Blind, Parasite, Got to Choose. You've got Watching You, you've got Mainline, Strange Ways, the trippiest Ace guitar solo with Peter on vocals. Again, there's so much to love about early Kiss, and the contributions that all four guys give to what the sound of Kiss is truly unique because you can look at so many other bands and go, okay, that's, you know, Joe Perry and Steven Tyler are the sound of Aerosmith. But for Kiss, as much as Gene and Paul may be the quote-unquote faces in front of the band, there's nothing that can tell me otherwise that Ace and Peter are not as important, if not more so, in so many ways to the sound of what Kiss was for this period of time. They're all adding their flavors together, and it makes the original lineup of Kiss my favorite band of all time. They brought all those elements together at a really unique time in music, and this album, the production is weird as hell between Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise. It was an effort. It was an idea to try to be heavier, darker, like a Black Sabbath sound of recording. But ultimately, you either love or hate the recording and the mix of this. I like it for what it is. It's kind of a dirtier, kind of mud mess at times, but it's awesome. And the songs are so strong, you can't take anything away from it. Number 5. It is the final of the original trilogy that makes up the originals. It is the first Kiss album, and this copy, this is, I'm not sure if this is an early, let's look, be able to see if it's an early copy or not. Yeah, it's a blue label. It's a Casablanca blue label. So it's one of those early copies from Casablanca. Again, this is the bedrock of all of Kiss right here. The songs on this album, and yes, they sound better live. There's no real argument to that. But the first drum beat on Strutter, the first side of this album, you hear it. Deuce, the first time you hear it. Nothing to Lose, that shows up on the first single of Kisstory. I mean, you could go down the Black Diamond. You could go Cold Gin. The bedrock of Kiss's music is on this album. And this could be higher or lower depending on the day, but as I was ranking this right now, it wound up at number 5. I love these songs. These songs are indelible. They are a part of Kisstory. They are the bedrock foundation. The Plymouth Rock of Kisstory is this album right here. And people can say, I wish, I could get the live versions of them, but there's something, a charm and a musicality and a love of these first tracks on this first album. So again, it sits at number 5, could easily be higher. Number 4, a lot of people's pick for the best Kiss album of all time. It is Destroyer, produced by Bob Ezrin. Really start to see the growth that Bob helped give the songwriting portion of the band here. Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, God of Thunder. That's your first side with great expectations. Side 2, there's some deeper cuts there like Flamin' Youth, Sweet Pain. Those are great tracks in their own regard. The biggest, most successful Kiss song of all time, Beth, is on this album. And, I don't go back and like long to hear ballads, but Beth is a phenomenal ballad written by Peter with Stan Penridge and Bob Ezrin. And I know there was a whole controversy about that. It's a Peter Criss song, however you want to slice it. And I know Gene has talked about it and back and forth, but Bob, worked on it with those guys, and it became a gigantic song. It was on the other side of Detroit Rock City. And Detroit Rock City might be the definitive Kiss song. If you really want to get technical, I know Rock and Roll Night is the one that everybody looks at. But if you told me to give one song, like I only get like one or two songs to show a fan why this band is cool musically, Detroit Rock City is right up there. It's a real story about a fan from Charlotte, North Carolina, trying to go see a Kiss concert that dies on his way there. All those things are evident and they're well documented if you want to go find the stories of them. It's a phenomenal track. And the production on this album is impressive. The drumming has never sounded better for Peter Criss than on this album. The God of Thunder sounds, the children and the noises and the demon persona is all there. Paul's at a high level. Ace sounds incredible on the solos. Everything sounds good on this album. It's one of the best sounding Kiss records of all time. Number 3, another in the category of incredible sounding mixes and just an incredible, overall production value for what was ultimately kind of a disjointed effort, because this is the last Kiss makeup album of the 80s. It is Creatures of the Night. Ace Frehley on the cover does not appear on this album. This is a combination of a bunch of guitar players, some auditioning to be in the band, some just doing session work. You've got incredible players like Robin Ford playing a solo on this album between Rock and Roll Hell and I Still Love You. You've got Vinnie Vincent on there on War Machine. Other tracks as well, like Danger, have Bob Kulick on guitar. Creatures of the Night, you have Steve Ferris of Mr. Mister taking a crack at the solo there. There's so many parts that shouldn't make this album great, but the overwhelming number one best part of this album is Eric Carr's thunderous drums. You will hear anybody talking about this album bring it up. He is absolutely bringing the thunder from down under on those drums. Like he is, like it's the sound of hell, the way he's beating the hell out of those drums. But the songwriting is so strong. You see growth with Creatures of the Night, showing what they learned from Detroit Rock City and other songs there with Paul. Rock and Roll Hell is a cover of a BTO song, or was written for BTO, and Gene gets a co-write there to make it sound a little bit different and tweak up a verse, I think maybe a line or two, but he gets it on the album, and it's phenomenal. It's actually my favorite track on the album. I know that's crazy. Rock and Roll Hell is my favorite track on the album. I Still Love You is the most impressive vocal performance by Paul Stanley on any recorded Kiss album. I will say that straight face, looking dead into the camera. I Still Love You is the most powerful, kick-ass, boot to the balls ballad you will ever hear. And Paul Stanley, if you didn't appreciate Kiss for anything else, Paul Stanley as a vocalist, songwriter, rhythm guitar player brings it all on that song. And then War Machine is just like, it's like the heaviest thing you're ever going to listen to in the Kiss catalog. I mean, it's just punching you right in the face. It's phenomenal. Deep tracks up and down. This is, if you want to quote yourself as being a serious Kiss fan, this is one you have to put in the top 5. And I've been obsessed with this album from the first time I heard it. I didn't think I could love a Kiss album that didn't have Ace and Peter that much, but golly, phenomenal work by all involved on that one. Number 2. Getting down to the top 2 here. This one's going to kind of surprise some people. This is Love Gun. Love Gun is one of the records produced by Eddie Kramer, who is my favorite Kiss producer, right up there with Bob Ezrin and Michael James Jackson, who produced Lick It Up and Creatures of the Night. But Eddie Kramer was one that worked on the original demos with Kiss, helped record Alive and Alive 2, records this album and another album, and also works with Alive 3 to a lesser extent. But this is really at the zenith of the career. The Live 2 period the Love Gun Alive 2 period is where everything is working in Kiss's favor. They win the Gallup poll for the most popular band in the world, or at least in the United States, I believe, over the Eagles and a couple others. I think it was in the United States. I would say in the world, but in the United States. This album was a Ken Kelly painting, just like Destroyer was. Songwriting-wise, look, this also kind of falls victim to what Dress to Kill did, and it's the only reason it's not higher. It could very well be the best album if they didn't have a couple of thrown in tracks in there. Like Then She Kissed Me is obviously the weak track on the album. But I love I Stole Your Love. It's my favorite Kiss show opener. You want to talk about kicking ass from the drop? Go watch the Love Gun Alive 2 tour where they open with that sucker. Bam! Just coming down the stairwells and the pyro and every. Oh, I don't know how people don't love this band. Love Gun is like Paul just showing real growth there as a songwriter, putting it all together. Almost Human is another Gene Simmons demon character track, which is really heavy. Shock Me, the first Ace Frehley vocal on a Kiss album. He gets 3 on the next album with Dynasty, gets 1 on the other side of Alive 2. But Shock Me is the opportunity we get to see for the first time just what Ace is capable to bring as a vocalist. Songwriting, he'd been bringing it for years, but this is arguably his best solo on a studio record. I mean, I could throw this one in there. I could throw a couple others that are coming up here in a minute. But off rip, it's a story about his near electrocution in Lakeland, Florida in 1976. Written like that with a lot of innuendo in there for lyrical content. But it's a strong track. It's one of my favorite Ace tracks, and it's a big focal point of Alive 2. The live performance of it as well there. Tomorrow and Tonight, Christine 16, there's some great tracks on here. Peter's track, Hooligan, is a kind of 50s groove and rock and roll, like real old school rock and roll track, but it's great. Vocally, Peter's bringing it on that one. I love this album. Just a couple tracks shy. If you could have gotten like Rocket Ride and Larger Than Life off of Alive 2 and put it on here, this could possibly be number 1. But in fact, it is not number 1. What is at number 1, though, is Rock and Roll Over. And I've shown this album a couple times already because I got Peter to sign it, and it is truly the only thing missing from this being a perfect record is there is no Ace vocal on it. We're 1 album away from that. But as far as a cohesive band playing together, this is as good as it gets with Kiss, in my opinion. You can like some of the songs on those other albums, the bigger smash hits, however you want to call it. But Rock and Roll Over, my friends, this is Kiss at its rawest. Rock and roll, love it. It's incredible. You've got deep tracks like See You in Your Dreams. You've got Baby Driver, Ladies Room, Mr. Speed. All those are really like, if you're a true Kiss fan and you got to get past that hits, like greatest hits package of stuff. You're tired of that. You need the next level. This is the album to do it. Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, Making Love, Take Me, I Want You, Calling Dr. Love. That might be my favorite Ace Frehley solo. And that's the thing about it. Ace doesn't sing on this song, doesn't even really have many, if any, maybe 1 writing credit on this album. But as a player, the tone they get with Eddie Kramer, and Ace and Eddie worked so well together because Ace had so much reverence for Eddie Kramer for the work he did with Zeppelin and Hendrix and everybody else that he worked with. He got the best performances out of Ace as a player. But then, Peter has Baby Driver as a vocal, and he has a Paul song in Hard Luck Woman, which is a beautiful song written by Paul, a la, Rod Stewart-esque songs of the 70s that are really popular. But, this is a kick-ass rock album. I Want You starts with this kind of tease that it's all kind of be light and easy, and then they kick right into it, and they're rocking, and they're kicking ass and taking names, and this album cover reaches out and grabs you, and it's just, you gotta have it. I'm getting worked up about it. I had to bring the energy for this. I do not play around with the idea that people try to knock Kiss as musicians. There are incredible rock and roll pieces of music between the 70s, 80s, and 90s in this discography. You can get past the show. You can get past the dumb stuff that members of this band have said live and in media over the years. The infighting, the breaking up, the reunion, whatever you want. It's all there. The non-makeup, the makeup, who's wearing the makeup, who shouldn't be. There are good songs. There are great songs. There are fabulous songs on these albums. They are as good as anything from the time period. I will say that until I am blue or red in the face, whichever comes first. They can go toe-to-toe with anybody you love. From those 70s hard rock bands, from those 80s hard rock metal bands. They bring it. They have musicianship. They like to act like they don't. They don't know how to write a song. They're all about it for the money. I don't want to hear that shit. Kiss rocks. The hottest band in the world. And I know what they may be retired or doing whatever they're doing now. But I am a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army, and I will always be that. I love this music. It is timeless. And records like this right here, number one on my list, Rock and Roll Over. Ranking the power rankings of the Kiss studio albums. And again, if I wanted to make this really easy, I could have just done Alive and Alive 2 and called it a day. But that's not how I do things on this show. It's my show. This is what I do. And that's going to wrap us up. We went long on this one, but I had to get that list in. You're going to see that video out there as well. Cut that up and let everybody enjoy that in the Kiss circles. But that is the end of our show. We'll be back next Thursday. Actually, we'll be giving you an early episode because I will be out of town Thursday. So you'll get an episode on Thursday as opposed to Friday next week. So enjoy that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Follow however you can. If you're watching it on Spotify, you're following it on Apple Podcasts, watching the videos on YouTube, we thank you so, so much. Please tell your friends. It helps support the channel. Thank you again for another edition of the Collins Janus Show. The preceding episode was a production of Moonlight Media Works.